everybody, I'm Janet Fletcher. I'm a food writer in Napa Valley in California, and I'm the publisher of a blog called Planet Cheese that comes to your inbox every week if you're a subscriber. If you're not, I hope you'll go to my website, janetfletcher.com, and subscribe. I'd love to have you as a reader. I'm also a volunteer with a new grassroots movement called Victory Cheese. And if you haven't heard about Victory Cheese, you soon will, because it's a small but mighty collection of cheese enthusiasts and cheese professionals who've come together to help the specialty cheese industry. As you can imagine, a lot of our creameries, cheesemakers, dairy farmers are really struggling right now. They've lost their restaurant accounts, they've lost a lot of their retail business, their catering business, and they are really hurting. And you can't just tell the dairy cows not to give milk anymore. The animals have to be milked, goats have to be milked, cheese has to be made, and fresh cheeses have to be consumed. So some of us have come together to help out the specialty cheese industry, try to keep these cheeses moving through the pipeline from the farm to your table, and we've created a project called Victory Cheese. I've created 12 Victory Cheese boxes that you can purchase through igourmet.com. Each collection is different, 3 different cheeses, different themes, totally different flavors. You purchased the cheese box for beer fans. Thank you very much. And it came to you in this little muslin bag, which I think you can use to store your bread in afterwards. And I thought it would be a good idea to just lead you briefly through the 3 cheeses that are in your bag so that you know what you have in front of you, so that you have a little of the backstory when you're ready to taste. So let's get started. We're going to try to taste from mildest to strongest, but knowing that you all are beer fans, I thought I could throw some pretty strong cheeses at you. So all 3 of these cheeses are quite robust, quite pungent, and it's a little hard to know what order to taste them in. But let's start with our goat cheese, which is called Cabra La Mancha. It's from Maryland, one of the only creameries I know about in Maryland, Firefly Farms. And they specialize in goat cheese. They make a variety of them. This is their Washed-Rind goat cheese. And it's quite unusual. There are very few cheeses like this made in the U.S. Can't tell you why. But it is 100% goat's milk, and this washed rind, when I call it a washed rind, that's because it's been washed a lot, multiple times on the outside with brine, with salt water, which makes this kind of damp, tacky rind. And you can see this sort of flesh-colored, salmon-colored hue on the rind, and that's from bacteria, good bacteria that love that moist, salty surface. They colonize the surface, and they're going to create all these wonderful aromas in the Cabra La Mancha. I hope when you get ready to taste it, you will cut yourself a piece and pause and think about what you're smelling before you taste it. I think you're going to get a lot of just kind of funky smells. People talk about dirty laundry or dirty gym socks, but I find these aromas very captivating. They're sort of artichoke-like and meaty, and I think when you taste it, this is a semi-soft cheese. It's not firm, and it is, look how, it's very tender, and it's going to have a kind of a sweetness to it, more than you would expect from a cow's milk cheese made like this. It's much sweeter than, say, a Munster or a Port Salut. And that's from the goat's milk. When you age out goat's milk, you get this nice sweetness. So I would personally pair this cheese with a beer that had a little bit of sweetness to it and some spicy funk, like a Belgian-style Saison or a Belgian-style Triple. Those are nice beers that have a lot of spice and sweetness, and I think they would be great with this Cabra La Mancha. It's also going to have some tang, some of that goat's milk tartness. Our next cheese is from Vermont, and it's from the very well-known creamery Jasper Hill Farm. This is Willow Beet. It's not a cheese they created. They actually, when a neighbor farm created the cheese, and then that creamery had a fire, went out of business, and sold the recipe and the rights to the cheese to Jasper Hill. and they have continued with Willow Beet to make it and even improve on it. It's another washed-rind cheese, but what I hope you'll notice when you taste them is how very different it is from the Cabra La Mancha. First of all, it's cow's milk, not goat's milk. It's a much smaller cheese, and it also has been washed with brine, but and it's going to have some of the same aromas, but more beefy. It's from cow's milk, and I get a lot of garlic and roasted onion aromas in this cheese. Again, a kind of vegetal smell, a little bit like leeks or cooked leeks, almost an artichoke kind of smell, mushrooms and aged beef. It's much softer than the Cabra La Mancha. It's ripening from the outside in, and it's going to get real squishy, which the Cabra La Mancha will not. Real spreadable. So you want to have some great dark rye bread, I think, for this cheese. And I would, again, you want a beer. I would love it with something like a Saison, a Belgian-style Saison, really yeasty beers. This is a yeasty cheese. It has kind of bread yeast aromas. So I would love it with a Saison. I noticed on the when I was unwrapping it today that the creamery had a beer recommendation on the label, and they're suggesting a sour ale, a sour beer. So if you love those kind of funky sour beers, this is a great opportunity to break one out. Let's go to our final cheese, which is from Utah, all the way across the country from Vermont, and it's from Beehive cheese in Utah. This is their famous Barely Buzzed. It's hard to believe that Beehive cheese is only maybe 15 years old, because Barely Buzzed now seems like just a classic. It is such a popular, famous, beloved cheese, and it is their flagship cheese. Has kind of a funny backstory. The brothers-in-law who started Beehive cheese, one of them has a brother who's in the coffee business, roasting coffee beans, and they had some of these coffee beans hanging around the creamery one day, and they thought, it was kind of a slow day. What if we grind up some of those coffee beans and put it on the outside of our cheddar? Their cheddar is called Promontory. So that's what they did. They actually did a couple of small wheels that they, just as an experiment, they put the ground up coffee beans and some ground up lavender, just because, hey, why not? And they waited a few months. They ate most of it and liked it, and they took one of the wheels to a trade show, and they tasted a grocery store buyer on it, and he said, I'll take everything you got. So that launched Barely Buzzed. So it's still it is still a pain in the neck to cut, because you get these coffee beans all over your fingers. But that's ground coffee and ground espresso and lavender, and you really will smell it on the inside of the cheese. So remember, when you taste it, this is 100% cow's milk, and it is it's about I'm going to say 4 months old, perhaps. It's a cheddar style cheese. So look for that kind of nuttiness that we expect from a cheddar, and that finishing cheddar tang, and also from the way that coffee and lavender permeate the inside. So what are we going to drink with this? Well, I think this is a great opportunity to break out a malty beer, something like a porter or a stout that will really echo the coffee aromas that you're getting from the outside. So 3 great cheeses: Cabra La Mancha, Willow Beet, and Beehive's Barely Buzzed. I hope you'll enjoy them. I hope you'll also go on the iGourmet site and look at the 11 other collections, victory cheese boxes that I've put together for iGourmet, because your purchase helps support America's fine artisan cheesemakers. Thank you.